The Pokemon anime has been running for 9,048 total days as of this episode hitting YouTube, and our protagonist and recurring chosen one, Ash Ketchum, has been on some pretty exciting and intense adventures. However, he has also been on some really weird ones, and that is what we are going to cover today. This is Ash Ketchum's Weirdest Journeys. We start this arrangement of oddball episodes with a classic episode from the Diamond and Pearl series called Malice in Wonderland. The gang encounters a wild Miss Magius in this episode, unknown to them, and then immediately get hit by hypnosis. The viewers, me and you, are then drugged through all kinds of hallucinations, including seeing a Rayquaza owned by a Cynthia fight a Groudon in a random stadium, Jessie getting her own reality TV show, Dawn going up against her own mother in a contest, Ash then defeating Cynthia's Rayquaza with his Pikachu, and most surprising of all, Brock being loved on by all the Nurse Joys and Officer Jennies he can dream of. But it doesn't end there, as Brock wakes up from the hypnosis, and upon going back into the dreamscape to warn the others, Miss Magius then fuses with Rayquaza and makes a new form of the legendary, and the other Pokemon do their own form of Dynamaxing to combat this new Rayquaza. Then, after defeating Miss Magius Rayquaza, the Pokemon then tries to shower the gang with their greatest dreams in some sort of Hotel California plan, and they have to decide whether they want to live in this dreamscape forever or go back to reality. I really don't know what's going on in this episode. This episode is so good at being a fever dream for the characters that it made me feel like I was having a fever dream. Next up, we have the 138th episode of Pokemon, The Superhero Secret. In this episode, we are in the Johto region, and we legit kick off the episode with Team Rocket literally trying to drown Ash and his friends, so that way they can steal Pikachu, I guess? Anywho, they are saved by a legit dude in a Pokemon costume named Gligar Man. We find out later in the episode that the man in question is just an old toy builder that created the persona to sell toys because, well, times are tough and we're all just out here on that grind. I feel you, man. Anywho, Gligar Man realizes he can't keep this up forever and then asks Ash to take over the mantle of Gligar Man, who, as a relatively sane person, declines. Then, the town gets attacked by Team Rocket, who dresses everyone up as Metapod to prove some sort of point to Gligar Man, I guess. Then the Toyman's daughter has to come in and save the day as Glygirl, and the town just goes on with their life like this was an average Tuesday. In a world where Pokemon can literally summon meteors and shoot laser beams from their eyes, I'm glad we have Gligar Man to keep us safe. Thanks, Pokemon Company. Now let's go to an episode that 95% of the Pokemon community has seen and then couldn't remember if they watched that on TV or if they were waking up from some sort of wild dream. This episode is Abra and the Psychic Showdown. Ash starts off this episode by almost falling to his death off of a cliff. Ash dying, super new concept, I know. Then Ash goes into the Saffron Gym and challenges the gym leader Sabrina, who is carrying around this weird possessed doll that he thought was a human earlier that was just teleporting him around at the beginning of the episode. Sabrina agrees to battle if he promises that if he loses, he must stay and play with Sabrina. Ash, being Ash Ketchum, agrees, and in true Kanto fashion, gets absolutely obliterated by Sabrina. I will give it to him, though. Sabrina can apparently evolve her Pokemon using the power of her mind, so at least in this one, he had a good reason for getting beaten up on. Due to them losing, Sabrina uses her wild psychic powers and literally shrinks the gang to doll size and puts them in her dollhouse to play forever. Then the doll Sabrina literally tries to kill them as a game with a toy ball. Then this other dude from outside casually teleports the gang to him, and apparently it is Sabrina's dad that also hates her and is scared of Sabrina as well, and gives Ash some sort of secret on how to beat Sabrina using a ghost Pokemon. This episode is just wild from start to finish, and somehow people like this are all over this town, and yet Gligar Man is the best hero that Johto can muster. I don't even know what else to say about this episode. Let's go next. Our next entry is actually going to tackle one of the movies from the Pokemon franchise, Jirachi Wishmaker. As if it wasn't weird enough that the gang stumble upon a Pokemon during one of the times every 1,000 years that it actually decides to wake up, they meet a mad carny magician with a dream. This man, Butler, is a former Team Magma member who is so crazy that even they didn't want him in their crazy organization. Butler thinks he can use Jirachi to resurrect Groudon due to its power from its Millennium Eye, and that is when it gets super weird. He manages to actually do it. Kinda, not really at all. Using his machine and Jirachi Wish magic, he makes this monstrosity called Meta or Virus Groudon, which is a Groudon-shaped creature that just starts consuming all living things by just absorbing them with its blue-green slime tentacles from its fingers and tail, including tons of Pokemon, Brock and May, and the dude that literally created it. Oh yeah, did I mention they beat it because Jirachi just kinda blows it up? They don't really explain anything in this movie too much, like where Virus Groudon came from or how Jirachi's magic makes that a thing or why it needs living matter to survive. I don't know. Kind of not really touched on in the movie at all. It's just interesting, and it is certainly a Pokemon movie. I just can't get enough of these wild Kanto episodes, and we already covered the OP psychic types, so let's cover their one weakness that they are somehow strong against. We are going to look at the ghost of Maiden's Peak. Upon arriving at the Maiden Peak Island, Brock and James see a beautiful woman and become immediately infatuated with her. They are then lured to the shrine of Maiden Peak at night by this woman, and the rest of both groups have to try and stop this from happening to the two men. Jesse's solution to this is to shoot the woman with a bazooka. Don't worry, they are pretty sure she is a ghost at this point. They think. And this is where it gets wild. The woman then transforms into a talking Ghastly and fights the gang. It becomes a mousetrap to beat Pikachu, summons a mongoose to beat Ekans, then puts a gas mask on the mongoose to beat Coughing, and fuses into a Blastoise Venusaur hybrid monster to beat Squirtle and Bulbasaur. Nothing works to beat the Ghastly, who is apparently the most overpowered Pokemon in Kanto, until the sun comes up and Ghastly's just like,
"Oh man, I hate the sun. I'll see you next year, I guess. Bye."
Then the episode ends with Ghastly talking and having a casual conversation with the actual ghost of Maiden Peak. This episode is just weird from start to finish, and I vividly remember this episode making me think Ghastly was actually stronger than Gengar because it could apparently do whatever it wanted in this reality. Now, I don't want you all to think that the Hoenn episodes aren't going to get any love in this series, so next up is Caterpie's Big Dilemma. While traveling, Ash and his friends are attacked by an angry Caterpie, and when May tries to investigate it with her Pokédex, a trainer jumps out of the bushes and has Caterpie tie them up with string shot. Then, a scientist just jumps out of the bushes and uses a machine to read their minds to see what their intention is in this forest. Upon realizing that they are safe and not a threat to his science or his Caterpie friend, he allows them to come to his laboratory, which soon gets attacked by Team Rocket. Team Rocket then tries to steal a briefcase to get their hands on that advanced tech that the scientist has, and it falls to the ground, revealing special mysterious candies. The Caterpie from earlier in the episode then eats said candy and goes through its own version of Dynamax, I guess, and becomes larger than the building. Caterpie then climbs a tower and at the top of it evolves into Metapod. It is also revealed then that Team Rocket stole some of the candies themselves, and Cacnea and Dustox end up eating them and also become huge. In response to this, Metapod evolves again immediately into Butterfree, and the two teams fight while riding on top of their giant Mothra Pokemon Dustox and Butterfree. After a bout of a few moves, maybe about 3 moves, they go back to normal size, and the episode pretty much ends there. People really like to think that Dynamaxing is a new, weird idea, but it isn't even the first time that it's made it into this episode. The idea of giant or Dynamaxing Pokemon has been around in this fandom for a very long time, and I see it recurring even more after Galar. We are going to return to the dreamscape now as we check out another Pokemon movie. Pokemon 3, the movie, Spell of the Unknown. This movie, while admittedly being one of my favorites in the franchise, is pretty wild, and we all kind of just accepted its premise growing up. The movie starts with this dad checking out ancient ruins and being sucked into a weird dimension through portals at said ruins. Then we go back to the mansion that he owns with his 5-year-old daughter, and we have to watch the 5-year-old grieve over the fact that her father just died. She then uses her dad's fancy ancient tiles to write Papa on the ground, and the portal that the dad fell into opens back up, and the alphabet soup Pokemon Unknown begins to pour out of it and teleport to the 5-year-old Molly. Then the Unknown cover the town in crystals to protect Molly, who wishes her dad was back, so the Unknown create a legendary Pokemon, Entei, to be her dad. Then Entei helps Molly get a mom by stealing Ash's mom, Dahlia, and bringing her into the Crystal Castle because 5-year-old Molly knows her somehow from earlier in her life. Ash and his friends then have to fight this 5-year-old and her dream Pokemon that are insanely strong in her castle where she controls reality while they fight off her legendary Pokédad. Through the power of friendship or something along those lines, they convince this girl that the real world is cooler than her own reality, and she decides to make Entei fight the Unknown to bring things back to the way they were. After Entei breaks through their defenses, the Unknown are defeated and go back to their dimension, and Molly's dad is suddenly back in her life again, I guess because the Unknown are now too weak to keep him there. They don't really explain it. Either way, they're a happy, healthy family again, and Jesse and James, I guess, just kind of live in their castle now. They just kind of leave it at that, but classic Pokemon movie shenanigans. I also want to note that if Unknown had a tenth of the power in-game that they are given in this movie, everyone would use this Pokemon. Please put some respect on Unknown and bring back this Pokemon. Save it. A stat boost or something, please. Instead of focusing on one episode or one movie for this next entry, we are actually going to cover a recurring character in Ash's adventures. Santa Claus. Santa has appeared in the anime not once, not twice, but 4 times so far in Pokemon history. However, we will just cover the first encounter as all the rest are mostly focused around Ash's Pokemon helping Santa, while Ash usually sleeps to get ready for his own presents to be delivered. Selfish, I know. The first time we encounter Ash with Santa, Jessie is out to get revenge because Santa's Jinx apparently stole her favorite doll when she was a kid and didn't give it back. Now she is convinced that Santa is actually a Jinx and a toy thief. A few moments later in the episode, Ash encounters said Jinx stranded on a beach with Santa's boot and decides to help it get back to the North Pole. They then go to the North Pole on Santa's telepathically speaking Lapras. Did I mention that the Jinx can also speak telepathically? And then they get attacked by Team Rocket, who takes Santa as a hostage, and Ash has to beat them and free Santa so he can make his annual trip to all the kids of the world. This episode was extremely weird, and most people don't even remember it because they never saw it. As many people know, this episode was notoriously banned outside of Japan due to the Jinx controversy. The next entry on this list is actually the most recent episode on this list so far. A Kalos classic, A Cave of Mirrors. In this episode, the Kalos gang go into the notorious Reflection Cave in the Kalos region. While journeying through the cave and being mesmerized by how beautiful it is, Ash gets distracted by shining lights on the mirror-like surfaces of the walls and goes towards it. He then sees a reflection of himself, but it looks slightly different from the Ash we're used to seeing. This reflection of Ash then reaches through the mirror, grabs Pikachu on Ash's shoulder, and pulls him into the cave walls. Ash, being Ash Ketchum, selflessly follows Pikachu into the mirror and ends up in a different dimension with mirror versions of all his partners and friends. However, these mirror versions are a little bit more unique, as Mirror Pikachu is wild and aggressive, and Mirror Clement can cast magical spells. Whatever. Ash then fights off Team Rocket by battling against them with the help of Mirror Ash and uses the power of friendship to will himself back into the correct dimension, because if he stays in this dimension after sunset, he is stuck there forever. It was a really weird episode in between some relatively normal ones. And also, Ash straight up lies to Serena and says he always wants them to travel together on their journeys. Bring Serena back to Pokemon Journeys, please, I beg you. It's all I'm asking for, please. My one Journeys wish list. And maybe Alon and Tobias too, but first Serena, please. Speaking of Pokemon Journeys, our last entry is episode 26 of the Journeys series. Splash, Dash, and Smash for the crown, Slowking's crowning. What a name. Go finds out in this episode that there is a competition for Magikarp jumping. I wonder where that idea came from. And he thinks his giant Magikarp could give the champion a run for its money. There is then a rigorous exercise montage, and we get to see ripped Go and jacked Ash to show how much training was done during the episode. At the competition, Go absolutely demolishes everyone up to the champion, and he then reveals that his Magikarp had been wearing weights this whole time that were so heavy that 2 Machamps struggled to carry them back. How they got them on said Magikarp in the first place and then got it to the competition is a true wonder. Go's giant Magikarp then jumps so high that it ends up in orbit in space and does not come back down. Go is then disqualified because his Magikarp technically did not finish the jump because it never came back down. It went up and stayed there. I wish I could say that the episode ended there, but it absolutely does not. They then go to Slowpoke Island and encounter a noodle-loving Slowking who trades his crown for a cup of noodles. However, when the crown touches Ash's head, he begins to act weird and states that he will have great influence over all Slowpoke and refuses to take the crown off or have it removed from his head by force. They finally end up getting the crown off of him, but it lands on Go, who now states that he will use his power to catch all Slowpoke and become their master. They then get the crown off of Go, and it jumps around the entire group, including Pokemon multiple times over, until Magikarp comes back down from space and smashes into the ground so hard that the crown goes back to Slowking and the noodles go back to Ash. End of episode. This has by far been the weirdest episode so far in all of Pokemon Journeys, and I truly do not know how they will get any weirder than this. Anyway, that will wrap up Ash Ketchum's weirdest journeys. If you want to learn more about the wonderful world of Pokemon and become your own Pokemon master, subscribe to the channel. I will see you next time when the adventure continues. If you liked this video, then stick around and check out this one too.